Hello, everyone. Welcome to this week's show, and it's my honor and privilege to welcome someone I've grown up watching, someone who's an international star and an icon. He has had numerous achievements across his sport, and I would let him introduce you to all of you. Welcoming Mr. W V Raman to the show. Hello, Raman.
Hi, Ringo. It's a pleasure to be here, and hopefully, I would be of some value with my views out here in this forum.
Absolutely, and I think there is a very diverse audience here. So I would like you to give a little bit of a background about yourself and your achievements as a sports person, as a coach, as a leader, so that they get a flavor of what you bring to the conversation here.
So basically, I started playing cricket like any other kid did. When you knew how to walk and run, two things that kids did back then in India was to breathe and play cricket. So that was a given. So I started playing cricket for a simple reason to make friends and to while away some hours after school. And what started off as a fun kind of activity, started off as an activity to make friends and also, you know, gain some kind of enjoyment out of being out with your friends and having a bit of banter, even though you were just playing sort of gully cricket, as we call it.
Mhm.
For those who can't really understand what gully cricket is all about, cricket on the streets and wherever you found some piece of real estate. So then, by sheer accident, what happened was I managed to, sort of get into the school team because that was a sheer accident for the simple reason that I was there. I went there for the sheer purpose of encouraging and providing moral support to a friend of mine who was a year senior. And the circular of this particular selection did not come to my class because I was in the sixth standard, which means they only started sending circulars to people in the seventh and eighth standard,
Okay.
so the sub junior team. So I went there. He was my next door neighbor. I went along with him to see how he went on with the selections and just to, you know, sort of be a bit of a moral support to him. If at all somebody younger could do it when he was in the sixth standard, that really speaks volumes for either somebody's confidence or vanity, whichever way you want to look at it. So I went there and then I mustered up the courage to ask the physical director of the school who was organizing and completing the procedure of selection trials. So I went up to him and asked him if I could, have a go. So he looked at me. He said, "You look a little bit young, and did you get the circular?" I said, "I'm in the sixth, so you won't send a selector." So, but you had to hand it out to that man. He said, "If you want to have a go, I will not stop you. Have a go, but you must understand that these are bigger boys here." I said, "I'm going to use a bat, and play against somebody who's going to bowl. It's not that we are going to get into a boxing, kind of bout here." So he said, "Okay, fine. Let's see what he can do." So I went and put on my pads. I still remember I just played three deliveries. Um, the first was a forward defense. The second was a square cut. And the third one was perhaps a pull shot. Mind you, I'm doing all this with no pads. I don't have a box. Okay, it's a strip of 22 yards. That's about it. And there's a couple of stump-like wooden pieces kept there. And you got somebody else got a stone there, and that denoted the stumps at the bowler's end.
Absolutely can
And
relate to that.
okay, right. So seemingly boys who are really big, but of course they're in the seventh and eighth standard. They're bowling at you. But anyway, the misery was complete after I played three deliveries. So I ensured that all the bones were as they
Intact.
were when I went for the selection trials. Nothing got broken, nor the future, no family jewels were in trouble or whatever. So I came back unscathed, and surprise, surprise, I got picked, and I never expected at all. So that's how my journey started, and obviously it was a progressive a journey in terms of going step by step, playing for the under 15s, 19s, and then making my debut in first class cricket as a schoolboy cricketer, then performing well for 3, 4 years before I got drafted into the Indian side, and then there was checkered career for the next 8, 9 years in international cricket. Then I wound up. Then I got into coaching. Then I did media work by being a broadcaster, by being a columnist, and then I said, okay, let me do something which would provide me great satisfaction amongst all things. After trying out everything, I said, let me try and help the cricketers of the next generation. So I took to coaching on a regular basis. I've done about 2 decades of coaching. I think now I'm back to being a broadcaster for the simple reason that you need to have a drive, and I think the time has come now. Either I do an international side or I don't do any other side in terms of coaching. So it's something that I want to do if there's an opportunity, but obviously you never know how things will pan out. Even if it doesn't happen, I'm not going to really sit and fret. I'm going to be happy doing things, the other things that I can do in cricket. Then quite obviously during my playing days, it was a case of you having to somehow do something other than playing cricket also for your life after retirement. So I used to be a part of a corporate setup. I used to work. I've done various roles there: sales, marketing, corporate communication, looking after exports, developing business abroad.
Wow.
I've done
Wow.
quite a few
And
roles.
you forgot to mention you also are an author and you've written a very interesting book called The Winning
I
Six.
was coming to that. So now, what that did to me was that it gave me the courage to write a book wherein I am trying to say that whatever that you see on the sports field, whatever that you can learn from those incidents or from the lives of sporting icons or their career paths, there are a lot of things that you can learn from those and then employ them in the business world, because
Absolutely.
because the simple fact is that those incidents have taken place. People have responded in a certain way. So those principles have provided success in a high pressure environment where things had to be done spontaneously. So whereas in business you have the time, you can take time to decide on things, to plan, implement. If things go wrong, you can do course correction, but you can't do that on a cricket field. So which means that if it can be done there, yes, you don't necessarily sort of blindly replicate anything, but you absorb or you adapt or glean things that can be useful to you in the sports field and then employ them in the business world. That's what I'm trying to say. And to sum up my book in one line, it's a case of me trying to convey that there is a leader in each one of us.
Excellent.
We need to try and unleash the leader in us, because generally there's a tendency for people to think leadership and management skills are only for people who hold a post at the top of the ladder. It's not required elsewhere. But I, for one, I'm trying to say that it's required at all levels, in all spheres, in every activity. That's what I'm trying to convey through that book. It's been received well. Yes, of course. You can always sort of keep learning in life. You can always look at various avenues.
I mean, I've read that book, and my 2 cents is that it first of all came across very lucid, very simple, easy to appreciate, and especially if you are a cricket aficionado, you relate to it better. But I think you've also picked sports people from other arenas as well, and you've kind of shown them as examples. Most importantly,
I've also drawn upon Phil Collins, and
Yes, you
also
did.
has
Yes.
spoken about Richard
Frederick
Branson or
Forsyth, and you whole lot of
Robert
you.
Kiyosaki, or whatever. I cited them as examples,
Exactly.
in the context of what I wanted to convey. So that way it was not restricted only to cricket or only to sports. The fact is that when you are trying to project that sport can also come in handy in business, at least the principles. You have to try and um, ensure that you don't be one-sided. You got to also see the other side of the fence. You
Hmm.
also try and bring them into the frame, and
Absolutely.
then convey what you need to convey. It's interesting how that came about. In fact, that was never planned at all,
Okay.
and it was just a case of a literary agent being very enthusiastic, and him trying to encourage me into writing something, because his take was that with so many years of involvement in cricket, I can sort of toss up something
Hmm.
uh, that could be published in a book. So I was reluctant to start off with, but eventually, yeah, more so to try and feed his enthusiasm, I tried to think about it and came up with this idea. So I'm glad I did. In the end, I think the idea was to try and see if it can be of help to some people, especially the younger generation, because they're used to being fed all the time. They're used to being directed all the time.
Hmm. Hmm.
They're not allowed as much as they should be to evolve on their own. Is
Hmm.
my take on it, because there's a constant downloading. I've seen that happen at least in sport.
Hmm.
So I would not go to the extent of saying that happens in other spheres of life, because I can't say for certain, because I've not seen it for me to come to that conclusion
Hmm.
on a regular basis. At least in sport, I've seen that happen. So that was my take. I thought to myself, if this could happen in one aspect of life, there's a strong possibility that it could happen in other spheres of life as well. So that is why I felt leadership is something that everybody should try and unleash, or resort to in life.
I think that's a nice segue into my next question. So I think you've touched upon some areas on this, Raman. What, in your definition, is leadership? I know it's there in your book, but I would like you to kind of share it to the audience here.
Leadership is all about you facilitating others to be at their best.
Beautiful.
It is not about you. It is about the objective. It is about where you all want to head together at the end of the day. And
Excellent.
that is what it's all about. And basically, a leader is catering to others. It's not about his ego. It's not about his personal achievements. It's about him helping the others as much as he can to create an atmosphere where the others perform at their best, and
Excellent.
collectively you all have a great time, going towards the goals that you're set to achieve. It's as
Beautiful.
simple as that.
Beautiful. Beautiful definition.
That is
Love that.
leadership to me.
I can fully resonate with that because I think any leadership style which is it brings out the best. When you're not under pressure and you're not thinking about it, it's like a walk in the park. Which is why I guess people try and do many distractions while they're at work, and they try to make it more complex and more formal. But actually, like you said, it has to be natural and it has to be a
No,
fun
but
activity.
because the thing is that you might enjoy the title of being a leader of a group, or you might have the title of a CEO or whatever, but any one of your team members could have had that title. Come to think of it, it's just that somebody has to be given a title because of reasons best known to the board of directors, or the best reasons known to the selectors when they nominate X as a captain. But it's just a case of you being a part of that group. Essentially, you are a part of that group,
Mhm.
but you have that title.
I
It's
agree.
just that you are being given that doesn't mean you become, sort of prima donna or god overnight because you've been given the title. In fact, such titles entail responsibility on your part.
Mhm. I think it
Because responsibility is
underscores.
something. Responsibility is something that cannot be ignored by somebody who's got the title of being a leader or a captain or a CEO.
And I think it underscores that point you made in your book about giving it back. Also, as a leader, you need to probably see what am I doing for my team to
Yeah,
enhance and build on their capabilities, because like you said, collectively we have to win, not individually, right? I think life in itself is a team sport. It's not an individual sport. We all are social animals.
absolutely,
so
absolutely.
so
The
so
only thing is that as a leader, you must have a little bit of a lot of qualities because it's a role that requires you wearing multiple hats.
Agreed.
You need to have the felicity to sort of juggle different hats at different times.
I
So
know.
if you can have that felicity, then obviously you are going to excel. But for that to happen, you got to be absolutely open-minded, and you should shed your ego completely.
Beautifully said. Beautifully said. And I think, like I keep joking, and the little that I've seen of the job of a captain is actually the most thankless job. I mean, everybody sees them going and picking up the trophy, and everybody clapping, I guess. But the journey to that is not a fun journey. It's all the shit lands on your doorstep if anything goes wrong. So I think you're right.
Yeah, as a coach, that's what I've always felt. I've always felt that if something goes fine, if the team does well, I always say the credit goes to the players. Now, I also compare or tend to believe that a coach or a coach especially, uh, is somebody who is akin to a service engineer in an aircraft. What's his job, honestly? He just has to ensure that the flight or all the parts are well serviced, they're all functioning smoothly, so that the aircraft, you know, goes through its flight without any incident. And he ensures that everything is working smoothly and hands it over to the captain, which is the pilot in that case, in the case of an aircraft. And what does he do once the pilot is given charge of the aircraft? He sits back, fastens his seat belt, and just, allows the captain to do things. Similarly, what does a coach do? He sort of fine tunes everybody, each of the team members. And then, when something has to be done, a project has to be done in the corporate world, or when a match is to be played, he hands over that well prepared team to the captain. And once it starts, either the project or the match, then the coach is obviously, got to take a back seat. He can't be at the forefront. He can't be talking about him being the, main person there. He's got to take a back seat and let it roll.
Yeah. No, I think that's very beautifully put, and I think the more analogies you provide, and this is the forum for that, unrelated, because this is why I'm so privileged to have you on this conversation, is you bring a very different perspective as a sports icon as to what it is to play under high pressure with 100,000 people watching live and a million or more watching on digital media, and it's so much resting and so much banking on you, right? And so the letting go of ego and letting being calm about it is so important. I think you had to practice it. You couldn't just preach it, right? So if you did not practice, you would be a nervous wreck, I'm assuming. So the other segue I wanted to do today is get a perspective from you. How does leadership impact entrepreneurs and entrepreneurship? It's a pretty lonely life there. So what are your thoughts around that?
Even again, leadership is something that is handed over to you. Entrepreneurship is something that you get into.
Okay.
Now, what is the purpose of you getting into that? Is something that you have to be clear about.
Excellent.
It should be the purpose of you becoming an entrepreneur should be clear to yourself, and you should be clear as to what is it that you want to accomplish as an entrepreneur. What is it that you're trying to do there? Is it a case of you just looking at building up the zeros after let's say 7, 8 digits or 10 digits or 12 digits? What's it you're trying to do? So it's important that as an entrepreneur you are trying to make a serious impact for the welfare of the society. You can make your money, still contribute to the society.
Excellent.
Is what I'm trying to get at.
Excellent.
That is what I would do if I were to become an entrepreneur. Yes, somebody can turn around and say that's why idiot you not become because you're being romantic. That's a different story.
No, I think I would resonate with your thoughts simply because you don't have to. If you, I think you mentioned in the book that when you divorce yourself from the objective of making money, and it's the purpose that you go after. Money is a byproduct, and I'm a big believer.
Yeah,
Money has to be a
yeah. See,
byproduct. It cannot be the purpose.
suppose if you had to, let's say, talk about Sachin Tendulkar as let's say as an entrepreneur in the context of cricket.
Mm-hmm.
Now he didn't play with the objective of earning millions of dollars or stacking up, hoarding up money. He played to be the best in the business. He played to sort of be the best the world has seen. Now
Awesome.
that is the purpose. There, in doing so, what has he done? He's provided a lot of inspiration to
Happiness.
billions of people,
Exactly.
and he's inspired a lot of kids to take up sport. You see the benefit that he's done to the society. The kids take up sport, they're going to get away from mischief. They're going to minimize the chances of falling into the trap of bad habits
Very
or
true.
falling into the wrong things in life
Company.
or
Yeah.
doing the wrong things in life. And what has he done for the grown-ups and for the passionate followers of the game? Sorry, he's provided phenomenal pleasure.
Oh yes.
Now, as an entrepreneur, that is what you need to look at doing.
Beautifully said. Beautifully said.
Now, there's a lot of talk about Sachin Tendulkar. The talk is all about the money that he's made, the fame that he's got. No. Look at what he's done. Look at the sacrifice he's made. Now, he's not at the small pleasures of life. He's not, gone out as a 15-year-old kid. He's not gone out, on a whim and had a ice cream. He couldn't do that because by the time he was there, about 15 and a half, he's played for India. Everybody knew who that kid was.
I mean, yeah,
So
and the
people don't.
sacrifice is supreme. So yeah, you're right. So when that is the purpose, you're driven by that purpose. As an entrepreneur, if you're driven strongly by that purpose, I guess success, fame, money is a byproduct. Absolutely, I
Yeah.
think. And so, you've held numerous leadership positions. You've had pressure situations in your life. What are the challenges as a leader, Raman? What do you see are the biggest challenges?
See, you will have to understand one thing. In as much as you do the best that you can, impartially and without any prejudice to either the cause or to any member of the team or to the game by itself, if you look at a larger picture, you will still have a lot of people who will be unhappy about what you're doing. One is that because a human element again comes into play there. Jealousy is a very, very strong emotion. A lot of people may not be happy with the fact that one is that you being there when they have their aspirations as well. A lot of people may not like or probably they don't want to resign to the fact that you might be extremely superior to them, and they would obviously try and put up a lot of obstacles in your way.
Mhm.
It happens all the time. It happens. But the point is that you need to have the ability to discard all that and ignore all that.
Hmm.
Because as a leader, it's like, if you're the coach of a sporting team, there'll be a lot of pressure on the team to perform. Now, you cannot add on to the pressure of the players of the team. You got to try and absorb the pressure that the players are subjected to. So similarly, you need to try and ignore this particular aspect of human nature and, carry on doing what it is that you're supposed to be doing. And biggest thing is that the biggest trap that you can fall into is you trying to sort of try and please others
Mm-hmm.
to ensure that they don't sort of mount up obstacles along your way. Now, once you get distracted and start looking to sort of, in a subtle way, in an implied way, try and earn their protection,
Mm-hmm.
then you're going to get into serious trouble,
Yeah.
because that's exactly what is their objective all about.
To distract you, basically, to derail you.
Yeah, in one line, all I would say is that don't ever do things to please others, because you'll end up pleasing nobody.
Beautiful. Hmm. That's great advice. That's great advice coming from someone who's probably seen pressure at the highest level. So as you know, my last question for this chat, Raman, is what is your advice to youngsters, entrepreneurs, young leaders? What's your suggestion, advice to them?
Be true to yourself
Okay.
and do what you need to do, regardless of how much ever pressure you are under. That will
Excellent.
subside. That will, you will come over it some point or the other. But if you buckle and do things that you are better off not doing, then if you sort of stray from what you need to do, then it's very difficult to get back on track.
Excellent. Be true to yourself. Great. Thank you so much. And thank you for all the wonderful times you've given us as a sports person and as a coach. And for many who don't know, he was also the coach of the national team for the women's cricket team for India till recently, before he became broadcaster again. So wish you all success, good health and happiness in times to come, and looking forward to staying in touch, Raman. Thank you so much. God bless.
Thank you, Ringo. It was a pleasure talking to you, and nice of you to have me and give my jnana.
Absolutely. Very welcome. I'm telling you, this is going to be a talk a lot of my listeners are going to be listening to, because it's a very different perspective. Selfishly, I am very partial to the game and to folks like you. So for me, it's been a very pleasurable activity. Looking forward to many more such interactions with you.
Thanks, Ringo. Take
Thank
care.
you. Have a good evening. Bye.
You as well. Thanks. Bye.